Welcome to Being Human. I'm Barbara Caines. Our guest, Mary Beaty, is a humanist, an author, a human rights and environmental activist, an organic farmer, and a member of the International Humanist and Ethical Union. And she's also had a key voice at the United Nations. She still found time to conduct 700 weddings, funerals, and baby namings. We're happy and amazed Mary could find time for us.
Humanist officials in Canada conduct marriages and celebrated funerals and baby namings, commonly known as christenings. Humanists are also beginning to provide chaplaincy services to the public.
And later on, we'll ask what humanists think of the actions of Senate page Bridget DePape. She produced a Stop Harper sign during the speech from the throne. We are back with Mary Beaty. Mary, thanks for joining us again.
Thank you.
Mary, what do you want people to realize about humanism?
I think the title of this series, Being Human, is perfectly chosen because it says that we are thinking primates. We're humans, we're animals that think. And because we think, we are people who can understand that what is important is that you're human, I'm human, and therefore I understand, I hope I understand, about your life, and you are interested in understanding mine.
What do you think the biggest misconception is when it comes to understanding humanism?
I think historically, it's always been interesting that one of the criticisms that people level against humanists is that we are relativists, which means that people accuse us as making moral or ethical decisions based on the moment or based on ideas that change. Instead, I would say that humanists are actually not the relativists, because once I understand the golden rule of ethical reciprocity, you're human, I'm human, my feelings are your feelings, yours are mine, I can only treat you as I would treat everyone else. I would expect you to treat that too. Therefore, we all have a responsibility of living ethical and moral lives for the entire world and the world that we all inhabit together. So that's not relative. That's almost absolute, I think.
Mm-hmm. If somebody's saying, this makes sense to me,
yes,
what would be involved in actually living a humanist life?
One of my good friends has a line on her emails which says, humanists have faith in humanity. So I think of humanism as being that moment. We have that picture of Leonardo standing in the circle with his arms spread. We have Galileo saying, yes, the earth does move around the sky. We have people who are saying, I understand the world. I think, I wish to understand the world. So once you understand that you take responsibility for your living, your understanding, and how you live your life, then we're all humanists, really. That's how we live our life as ethical humans.
In 2011, why is it so important for people to understand this?
You know, David Noyes, who is the president of the American Humanist Association, wrote an interesting article called We're Living in a Post-Theological Age. Mm-hmm. If you think of the accumulation of all the history of philosophy of the human race, including religion, including philosophy, we've lived a long time now. We live on a crowded planet in which all those ideas are coming together. I think in 2011, we need to understand how all that knowledge has allowed us as thinking people to both cause harm to the world and to each other, and to try and help and heal the world and each other. So we need to use our skills, our reasoning, our ability, and our empathy and our emotions to try and help and save each other, because we're all we have.
What advice do you have? How do people do that? How do they achieve this?
I think first you have to be comfortable with yourself. First you have to understand that we're here for a very tiny short time. I think we're going to have another person who's talking about evolution and the long development of life on Earth, and we're just a blot, a tiny little blot. So in that time that we're allowed, if we understand that if we do our best to simply live a responsible life, which I think the humanist statement says, a life of caring and compassionate, which supports all of humanity and the earth we inhabit. If we all try and do that, our cleverness, our willingness, our ability to live together as cooperative human beings should be able to solve the problems that we're facing.
How do you think the world can get to that next level, though, from understanding to wanting to embrace and have that want to actually evoke change?
I think that in a world in which is a network world, in which commerce and war and all of these forces are fighting with each other, we still are communal mammals. We live in nuclear groups, we live in small groups, we're all born, we live, we die, and we share the same emotions and values. In the 19th century, in the past, we thought of other people as foreign. We thought, in fact, we called it the Foreign Legion, didn't we? Mm-hmm. All of those things, the foreign service. We're not that. We're all networked now. So young people, especially, geography has no boundaries for them. They understand that what happens here happens immediately somewhere else. We are able to understand that no man is an island, and everything that happens in this world, in this universe, affects all of us. I think now, once we look at the restrictions of national identity and thinking of other people as foreign, I have faith that the younger generation will actually be able to think of a world I can't even imagine, and it's happening soon. And it's going to happen soon because of all the changes that are coming. So I'm a little too old to say what should happen, but what I think is that the perception that we all share this humanity is what will, in the end, allow us to both take care of the earth that we all live in and each other.
It sounds like you're very intrigued with the youth of today, and you were telling me earlier that you thought a lot of them have basically humanistic views. What's your message to them then in order to, again, evoke change?
I'm very impressed and very encouraged by the youth of today. And I feel that when I meet young students, and I do meet them at the university and in other circumstances, they say to me, I guess I'm a humanist and I didn't know it, which is that wonderful moment where you realize that all you're saying to them is, use your skills, use your intelligence, use your gifts, use your awareness, and all of us together will be able to help solve the problems. You know, the young kids, when they're frustrated by government or when they're frustrated by economic circumstances, they do this. They go sideways. They create new ideas, new ways of dealing with problems. They've invented so many new things. People like Craig Kielburger, of course, is able to take his vision of being, I think of him as a Canadian humanist. He's created Save the Children in another place because those people are the same as him. People who are inventing new ways to deal with climate change, new ways of adapting humans to this earth. Those are the people who will be solving the problems to allow us, perhaps again, to remember again what it was like to be able to reflect on each other, music, art, beauty, truth, all those important things that we as human beings have been contemplating for thousands of years.
How do you think that happened? How do you think so many of the young people of today in Canada, you know, many in the United States, adopted this humanistic view?
I think a lot of it has to do with the art forms they share. A lot of it has to do with music. A lot of it has to do with breaking down a lot of barriers in terms of race and sex and all of the other ways that we define each other. I think it has to do with the global communication of allowing people. Do you remember when videos started? Mm-hmm. Well, a long time ago, music videos. I mean, remember all those things? When I was a child growing up, we had no environment. We had just the jungle. The jungle was over there, and that's where they made rubber, and we brought it back here and sold it. Our young children know that the world is a global environment. They understand and share their feelings and their hopes and their aspirations, their music, their art, with people that we would never have been able to share with before. So my hope is that that knowledge and their positive understanding and really respect for each other is what will lift those of us who are used to living in more rigid, narrow confines to an ability to deal with the world that is coming, both on a local, sharing, and an international basis.
Why is that so important to do it on a local basis? I know we've talked about how to do it on an international basis, but talk a little bit about the importance of on a local basis as well.
In every civilization, at every time in history, if people are able to control, of course, their local living, their local environment, they're able to relate to each other as humans. When large organizations come in, whether it's ancient Egypt or whether it's Walmart or anyone else who is operating on a scale which removes the human scale, we lose a bit of our ability to react as humans. And then what we do is we adopt styles that people tell us are human instead of the things we've made ourselves. I think, you know, the growth of things like Etsy is so popular because people are remembering and learning how to do things themselves. I have these fingers, I can do things. I'm actually not a robot, I'm a human. And I think the scale of the local scale, which allows us to relate to each other, will then affect economic scale and perhaps some of the separation between the corporate domination and changing us really into something else and back to be able to relate to each other as humans. People often say the 18th century was the human century. The buildings were different, they were human-sized, music was made by human people. That was definitely a time when people interacted with each other. And I find that the young are recreating those times themselves. They're recreating how to do things by themselves as humans. That's so exciting.
We pointed out off the top of the show that you are a humanist chaplain.
Yes.
What kind of responsibility is there on you as being one of the first at the University of Toronto?
Dr. Gail McCabe and I were appointed as the first secular humanist chaplains at the University of Toronto. There are a few other humanist chaplains around the world now. There's one at Harvard, Dr. Greg Epstein, who wrote that book, How to Be Good Without God, talking about compassion and working very much with the university students at Harvard. There's one in Glasgow, there's one coming up at Rutgers. What we are is simply a voice for students at the universities who do not follow a faith tradition, but come to us from either a secular tradition or a non-religious tradition, but are interested in questions of ethics, of philosophy, of morality, of poverty, of women's issues, of service, all those things that the faith-based organizations are also talking about. So we talk to them, we represent them, and as you mentioned, we also perform rites of passage for them, weddings and celebrations that are not faith-based.
You're such an accomplished woman.
Not particularly.
10 years fighting for human rights at the United Nations on top of everything else that you've just talked about. What's your most significant moment in those 10 years?
I was representing the American Humanist Association as an NGO at the United Nations.
Non-government organization.
Yes, that's right. And in that regard, we were working on issues of human rights and issues of freedom of religion and belief and all sorts of things that concern humanists, particularly civil rights and social justice. And we always used to work with many of the faith-based communities. So whenever we'd write a motion or do something, on the stationery, it would say all the faith-based organizations, and then there'd be a line and it would say other. And we were always other because nobody knew what to do with us. When I was there, we actually started making a coalition of groups that were not theistic, faith-based, but were ethical groups and philosophical groups who were also working so hard for human rights. So we formed an organization called the Council of Ethics-Based Organizations at the UN. And since that time, we've continued to work on ethical actions, on human rights, with all sorts of organizations around the world and NGOs that are working for the same issues, only from an ethical perspective. And I'm very proud of that, and I would like to see that continue.
As you should be. Thank you very much for joining us today.
All right.
And Mary's going to be back. When we come back, Mary and I are going to talk about the ethics of that young page who interrupted the speech from the throne with her very own message. We are back with Mary Beaty, and we're going to be talking about that controversial young page, Bridget DePape, who held up the Stop Harper sign during the throne speech. How are humanists viewing her actions?
I think we were very interested, and the reaction of my colleagues was very positive. We thought she was very brave. We thought she was very remarkable, even more so once we had read some of the statements that she made to support her actions. So if you divorce the action itself from holding up the sign from the reasons that prompted her to say, "Stop, Harper," it's a very humanist statements that she made. What I'd also say is that I noticed it, and I was surprised to find out that the young people that I know, my children and students, noticed it much faster than I did, because I read it in the Star and I saw it on television. They instantly changed their pictures in Facebook to be Brigitte's picture. As solidarity, hundreds and hundreds of people sent each other emails on Facebook to support her. She put her petition and her reasons on Facebook. And that action, which is what we just spoke about young people communicating equally and quickly, is what encouraged me. The reaction from most people that I knew was positive.
What do you think of some of her reasons that you read? Could you talk about that?
I think it's interesting that it's this particular government that caused this to happen. I think some of the things that she has said are things which have been said by other people who have been able to criticize the government for some of its secrecy, some of its lack of transparency, some of the decisions that it has made, and we've just heard the financial decisions that they concealed from us as citizens and taxpayers. I think perhaps another thing is the understanding and the interest of young people particularly in the fact that information should be shared. Governments should share information. We should know what governments are doing so that we can act responsibly. And I have something here. This is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
Oh, is that what you were working on?
That's what this is.
Right.
This was written in 1948, and it was written by a Canadian, John Peters Humphrey, along with Eleanor Roosevelt. It is the most humanist declaration of the aspirations of humanity and hopes for the world that we've ever had. I think Brigitte would like Article 19. Everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. This right includes freedom to hold opinions without interference and seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any media, regardless of frontiers. I think Brigitte's understanding that what she did would not only be on television, but would be shared globally as it has, is an understanding of the youth of the world now, that human rights only exist if we keep saying we have them. In the beginning of this document, the United Nations says, "These rights belong to you. They are your rights. Familiarize yourself with them, promote them, and defend them for yourself as well as your fellow human beings." If we don't defend them, if we don't talk about them, if we don't chastise governments, corporations, and anyone else who tells us we don't have these rights, they will disappear. So I laud all those young people, and I laud Brigitte Page for reminding us that this is our job. And this is for you. I'm giving you this.
Thank you. In your 10 years at the United Nations, how did you use this to update things there and update ways and ways that people think?
The important thing about this document is that it says that these rights are available to everyone, regardless of gender, regardless of nationality, regardless of any other circumstance. Nations around the world, governments around the world would like to tell us that these rights do not apply. And we also see, especially lately in the indictments in the International Criminal Court, we see that at some times in our global world, people think that they can abuse human rights by saying they don't exist. So my work at the UN and everyone else that I worked with, our work was very simple. You have these rights. We all have these rights because we are all merely human. It's our job to make sure that your rights are enshrined and supported the same as mine, and then maybe we can work on some of the problems that we're facing together.
A quick message for Brigitte de Pape?
Oh, we're very proud of her. I think perhaps I should change my Facebook picture too to be Brigitte de Pape. My message quickly is simply that keep going, and there will be more people behind you.
Mary, thanks very much for that.
Thank you very much.
We'll be back in a moment.
Humanism has been around for a long time, a lot longer than many of the world's major religions. It is the search for truth, knowledge, and values human beings can share. Humanist Canada promotes this coming together, and part of that effort is this show, Being Human. It will bring you some of the world's leading thinkers on a wide range of subjects.
That's Being Human. From all of us here, thanks for watching. Next week, we'll talk to a representative of the International Humanist and Ethical Union to learn what humanists are trying to achieve at the United Nations.